my wife's ancestral home, and the most trusted of her retainers, a great horseman and good with all animals. In the days that followed our marriage, Kaede and her woman, Manami, had shown considerable skill in handling and distributing food and equipment. They discussed everything with Amano, and had him deliver their decisions to the men. That morning he was enumerating the ox carts and pack horses we had at our disposal. I tried to stop listening, to concentrate on what Matsuda was telling me, but I was restless, eager to get moving. "Be patient," Matsuda said mildly. "This will only take a minute. What do you know about the Ho-Oh?" I reluctantly pulled my attention back to the feather in my palm and tried to recall what my former teacher, Ichiro, had taught me when I had been living in Lord Shigeru's house in Hagi. It is the sacred bird of legend that appears in times of justice and peace, and it is written with the same character as the name of my clan, Otori. "Correct," Matsuda said, smiling. "It does not often appear, justice and peace being something of a rarity in these times. But Shigeru saw it, and I believe the vision inspired him in his pursuit of these virtues. I told him then that the feathers were tinged with blood, and indeed, his blood, his death, still drive both you and me." I looked more closely at the feather. It lay across the scar on my right palm where I had burned my hand a long time ago, in Mino, my birthplace, the day Shigeru had saved my life. My hand was also marked with the straight line of the Kikuta, the tribe family to which I belonged, from which I had run away the previous winter. My inheritance, my past, and my future all seemed to be there, held in the palm of my hand. "Why do you show it to me now?" "You will be leaving here soon. You have been with us all winter, studying and training to prepare yourself to fill Shigeru's last commands to you. I wanted you to share in his vision, to remember that his goal was justice, and yours must be too. I will never forget it," I promised. I bowed reverently over the feather, holding it gently in both hands, and offered it back to the abbot. He took it, bowed over it, and replaced it in the small lacquered box from which he had taken it. I said nothing, remembering all that Shigeru had done for me, and how much I still needed to accomplish for him. "Ichiro told me about the Ho-Oh when he was teaching me to write my name," I said finally. "When I saw him in Hagi last year, he advised me to wait for him here, but I cannot wait much longer. We must leave for Maruyama within the week." I had been worrying about my old teacher since the snows had melted, for I knew that the Otori lords, Shigeru's uncles, were trying to take possession of my house and lands in Hagi, and that Ichiro continued stubbornly to resist them. I did not know it, but Ichiro was already dead. I had the news of it the next day. I was talking with Amano in the courtyard when I heard something from far below, shouts of anger, running feet, the trampling of hoofs. The sound of horses plunging up the slope was unexpected and shocking. Usually no one came to the temple at Teriyama on horseback. They either walked up the steep mountain path or, if unfit or very old, were carried by sturdy porters. A few seconds later, Amano heard it too. By then I was already running to the temple gates, calling to the guards. Swiftly they set about closing the gates and barring them. Matsuda came hurrying across the courtyard. He was not wearing armor, but his sword was in his belt. Before we could speak to each other, a challenge came from the guardhouse. "Who dares to ride to the temple gate? Dismount and approach this place of peace with respect." It was Kubo Makoto's voice, one of Teriyama's young warrior monks. He had become, over the last few months, my closest friend. I ran to the wooden stockade and climbed the ladder to the guardhouse. Makoto gestured toward the spy hole. Through the chinks in the wood I could see 4 horsemen. They had been galloping up the hill. Now they pulled their heaving, snorting mounts to a halt. They were fully armed, but the Otori crest was clearly visible on their helmets. For a moment I thought that they might be messengers from Ichiro. Then my eyes fell on the basket tied to the bow of one of the saddles. My heart turned to stone. I could guess, only too easily, what was inside such a container. The horses were rearing and cavorting, not only from the exertion of the gallop, but also from alarm. 2 of them were already bleeding from wounds to their hindquarters. A mob of angry men poured from the narrow path, armed with staves and sickles. I recognized some of them. They were farmers from the nearest village. The warrior at the rear made a rush at them, sword flailing, and they fell back slightly but did not disperse, maintaining their threatening stance in a tight half-circle. The leader of the horsemen flung a look of contempt at them, and then called toward the gate in a loud voice. I am Fuwa Dosan of the Otori clan from Hagi. I bring a message from my lords Shoichi and Masahiro for the upstart who calls himself Otori Takeo. Makoto called back. If you are peaceful messengers, dismount and leave your swords. The gates will be opened. I already knew what their message would be. I could feel blind fury building up behind my eyes. There's no need for that, Fuwa replied scornfully. Our message is short. Tell the so-called Takeo that the Otori do not recognize his claims, and that this is how they will deal with him and any who follow him. The man alongside him dropped the reins on his horse's neck and opened the container. From it, he took what I dreaded to see. Holding it by its topknot, he swung his arm and threw Ichiro's head over the wall into the temple grounds. It fell with a slight thud onto the petaled grass of the garden. I drew my sword, Jato, from my belt. Open the gate, I shouted. I'm going out to them. I leaped down the steps, Makoto behind me. As the gates opened, the Otori warriors turned their horses and drove them at the wall of men around them, swords sweeping. I imagine they thought the farmers would not dare attack them. Even I was astonished at what happened next. Instead of parting to let them through, the men on foot hurled themselves at the horses. 2 of the farmers died immediately, cut in half by the warriors' swords, but then the first horse came down, and its rider fell into the pack around him. The others met a similar fate. They had no chance to use their swordsmanship. They were dragged from their horses and beaten to death like dogs. Makoto and I tried to restrain the farmers and eventually managed to drive them back from the bodies. We restored calm only by severing the warriors' heads and having them displayed on the temple gates. The unruly army threw insults at them for a while and then retired down the hill, promising in loud voices that if any other strangers dared approach the temple and insult Lord Otori Takeo, the angel of Yamagata, they would be dealt with in the same way. Makoto was shaking with rage, and some other emotion that he wanted to talk to me about, but I did not have the time then. I went back inside the walls. Kaede had brought white cloths and water in a wooden bowl. She was kneeling on the ground beneath the cherry trees, calmly washing the head. Its skin was blue-gray, the eyes half-closed, the neck not severed cleanly, but hacked with several blows. Yet she handled it gently, with loving care, as if it were a precious and beautiful object. I knelt beside her, put out my hand, and touched the hair. It was streaked with gray, but the face in death looked younger than when I had last seen it, when Ichiro was alive in the house in Hagi, grieving and haunted by ghosts, yet still willing to show me affection and guidance. "Who is it?" Kaede said in a low voice. "Ichiro. He was my teacher in Hagi. Shigeru's too." My heart was too full to say more. I blinked away my tears. The memory of our last meeting rose in my mind. I wished I had said more to him, told him of my gratitude and my respect. I wondered how he had died, if his death had been humiliating and agonizing. I longed for the dead eyes to open, the bloodless lips to speak. How irretrievable the dead are, how completely they go from us. Even when their spirits return, they do not speak of their own deaths. I was born and raised among the hidden, who believe that only those who follow the commandments of the secret God will meet again in the afterlife. Everyone else will be consumed in the fires of hell. I did not know if my adopted father Shigeru had been a believer, but he was familiar with all the teachings of the hidden and spoke their prayers at the moment of his death, along with the name of the Enlightened One. Ichiro, his advisor and the steward of his household, had never given any such sign. In fact, rather the opposite. Ichiro had suspected from the start that Shigeru had rescued me from the warlord Iida Sadamu's persecution of the hidden, and had watched me like a cormorant for anything that might give me away. But I no longer followed the teachings of my childhood, and I could not believe that a man of Ichiro's integrity and loyalty was in hell. Far stronger was my outrage at the injustice of this murder, and my realization that now I had another death to avenge. "They paid for it with their lives," Kaede said. "Why kill an old man and go to all that trouble to bring his head to you?" She washed away the last traces of blood and wrapped a clean white cloth around the head. "I imagine the Otori lords want to draw me out," I replied. "They would prefer not to attack Terayama. They will run into Arai's soldiers if they do. They must hope to entice me over the border and meet me there." I longed for such a meeting, to punish them once and for all. The warriors' deaths had temporarily assuaged my fury, but I could feel it simmering in my heart. However, I had to be patient.